Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. If you read the title of this video, we're looking for a new Bitcoin high. But if you're watching it right now as we're going live, Bitcoin's actually going down, and that's perfect. It's exactly what we want. We're looking for a support area, an area that we have gone over a few times in these videos. The $57,000 area is where we are testing right now, and it is an important one for us. And I believe it's going to where we're going to hold support. So if we jump right in, this is Bitcoin on the 5-minute. Now, I wanted to go over this kind of smaller time frame and then zoom out. So we're going to do the opposite of what we normally do, which is instead of start macro, we're going to start micro. So right now, we've fallen through that which is on a larger time frame, a 45-minute, what's known as a rising wedge. And we've on the larger time frames, we've actually seen these breakout bullish, but on the small time frames, they're usually bearish and usually for a small amount. So we're looking for a retest of around 54,000 potentially, and then the cycle upwards to a test around 67,000. So as we zoom out here, this story starts to make a little more sense, even though I think the importance of something like a falling wedge, because again, we don't use pattern trades. We try to just follow these horizontal or rising trend lines. This here usually becomes a retest, and it's quite often a fake out where you'll see a lot of volatility near the end of this cycle, and it's for the pattern going either direction. So it's not really good to bet on either direction. But with how much strength we've seen in Ethereum, it's very likely a lot of this cycles back into the primary asset layer, which is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin usually gets moved out into stabilize into also USDT or Ethereum into USD or USDT, because it's still generally having a stable collateral layer is a smart idea. It's not, it's all kind of a hallucination for value. It's a really tricky sentiment on how that value might be hallucinated into what people call a price. But nonetheless, this kind of what I believe to be the next 12 hours, it will probably fill the middle of the box, this area here. So if we scroll out to a time frame that probably a lot more people are used to seeing on our channel, these macro perspectives, we're just leaving the spring for Bitcoin. So this is usually where we have a test. Now, the tests can actually come as low, so beware of this here as well. The test can come as low as around, let's say it would be around 50,000, probably the bottom of this rising channel that we are currently in. So we've seen tests do that where they will come back to test basically what is now the bottom of the trading range effectively. And you could even say this is the bottom of the trading range. With a bit more fear, retail moves into Ethereum instead of Bitcoin even further, because like Bitcoin's boring. It's not doing anything right now. And that's exactly what the markets are designed to do. They're designed to bore you. That way you jump around and you generally lose money to the bigger players who can just accumulate and not think about selling on these shorter time frames. So even though we started on the 5-minute, this much larger time frame and this much larger story is the one that's the most important to us. So we started this bull market back in March. This was the moment when pretty much every step afterwards, every trading range afterwards, we've seen extraordinary bullishness. The first subset of around $40,000 and afterwards has shown an extraordinary amount of volatility. Before that, we had all these very tight, beautiful trading ranges, which you can see here in green. After that, the trading ranges became significantly more volatile. And this is when large amounts of supply are coming on the market to really test to see what the market can handle, right? Day over day, people who mine Bitcoin, old wallets coming on. This is where these big profits come down. Someone wanting to trade the Bitcoin for a house, right? And this is what's happened because it makes sense. You want to diversify your assets. Generally, we're seeing inflation in every asset class right now as they print more money, whether it's property or Bitcoin or venture capital. We're seeing just massive inflation in the asset sector. And again, we haven't really seen deflation come home to roost. That may be why they're trying to print so much freaking money. Not for the betterment, sadly, either. It doesn't appear to be too well directed, but nonetheless, we're seeing these big moves, and we can expect that we're going to go higher. So what we've been charting the last, 2 months, pretty much since the beginning of December, almost 4 months now, 116 days, is an intermediary time frame in the general market cycle that we've talked about before. So I think there's probably pretty easy 3 ways to look at the market cycle. You have the market cycle low, which is what we call accumulation. The median of the market cycle, which is usually where I think we are now, is after you go through accumulation, you get marked up into a secondary area of reaccumulation. And this area that we've been in for the last 116 days basically represents accumulation. It does not represent the kind of final blow off top of the bull market. And that's what we've been studying and following. That's why we still remain very bullish, even though more popular YouTubers were starting to call this distribution. Well, we were missing some key signals here in the supply signatures, so it still looks bullish to me. This is just a supply test. We love these moments. We usually jack right up to the top of the trading range. We get some type of backup phase, or maybe even a backup outside of the box here for Bitcoin. And then we're probably going to go to around $100,000 by August. I suspect we'll be at around $100,000 by August. And that's kind of like the finality of the bull market, maybe like 150. Now, we could think, is it going to go higher? You see this kind of really nice, beautiful trend line taking place. One of the most important parts about technical analysis is to understand the 3 main significant characteristics. Again, number 1, you go through an area of accumulation, you go into markup, you generally go into reaccumulation, and you get a kind of a massive blow off top where everybody and their dog is finally interested in Bitcoin. And then it comes tumbling back down. It does a lot of volatility again, and then usually reaccumulates somewhere around the previous mid-cycle market movement, effectively, right? So not down, at least if it's an asset that people are interested in. So you could even simplify the market and go, well, it's just 2 cycles. It's the up and it's the down cycle. And this is what we call accumulation and distribution, right? And this is kind of the layman way to think about. But the important part to here is recognize that these cycles are actually psychologically attached to moments in human history, right? So this market cycle low of Bitcoin just so happens, at least at this particular time in our lifetime, related to the exact days that the WHO declared a pandemic. You have March 11th, 12th, 13th, the world locks down. And every moment after that, we've been on our way to euphoria. And we're on the middle ground of euphoria right now, effectively, right? So it's important to not just recognize the technical patterns, but the psychological ones as well, because we are witnessing psychological patterns, effectively. And they've been around for a long time. Human nature has not really budged. So we get a pretty clear reason why this stuff still works. 100 years later, the Wyckoff trading ranges still works. The supply and demand analysis still works. Well, it's boring at that point, right? Because technically this game is easy. You should be almost always accumulating more than taking profits, right? A game of accumulation over time always pays off, because when you look at the macro perspective, Bitcoin has technically only ever gone up. The S&P 500 has only ever gone up, right? There are some companies where there's a longevity to them that they've only ever gone up. And with Bitcoin as a protocol layer, with Ethereum as a protocol layer, there's a lot of room for upside still on the long term, and more than what the price is at today. And whether you should be exiting or not, you should be thinking about a 10-year strategy. So I'm going to go out. We're going to go over this again. We're going to start super macro with Ethereum, because I think it's a beautiful picture. So this is Ethereum. Now, for those of you that have joined the entire time the channel has been around, and you've been studying, or even just this summer, I guess, the March, springtime, this was the trading range we are following, this one right here. And what's very unique about this, and I pontificated, and we are in the future, it's actually pretty clear that it was not just a pontification. Our hypothesis was confirmed, and we've seen this before. We saw it with Fetch. We charted the lower aspect of the trading range effectively. We got in a great area, and now, even more importantly, there's a secondary trading range which built right around the top here. So now you had a larger trading range on both directions. So each of these lines going up right now, these are called regression lines, and these basically show areas of resistance as the price of Ethereum came down. So every step of the way, look how much we started to break out once we got past this final regression line. This is what we call blue sky area. And primarily we saw the first areas of blue sky area based off the first tops of the trading range here and here. And then we got caught up against the previous buying climax. We had an SOS and what appears to be another LPS before basically going parabolic. And what's beautiful about this is understanding the fractal nature of these trading ranges, right? So you want to think in these much larger time frames because this is where the big payoff is. The big payoff is recognizing an accumulation range between February 2019 and today, right? Most people get in here way too late into the markets. So what we want to do now is, now that we're in the middle of the bull market, we want to remember that this buying climax is going to hit distribution at one point, and it's going to come collapsing back down. And Ethereum's price, who knows, maybe it returns back to $1,200 for all we know, right? After it goes to like 8 to 10,000 or something ridiculous. So we want to make sure that our time frame is always fits the macro perspective. And it just makes venture capital a lot easier because then the upside is looked at in a 5 to 10 year diagram. Now, it's very clear that we are in a moment of profit taking. That's why we're seeing a lot of this volatility. Like a lot of these downsides are people, I almost built a pool the other day. I was like, oh, I should build a pool in the house right now. This would be great. Just a nice little balcony and an infinity pool right here. And I was like, oh, I'm leaving in 2 weeks, so I'm not building a pool. But that profit taking is a part of the aspect of euphoria, again, which we do not need a chart to recognize. It is just a part of the market cycle itself. Anyways, Ethereum, as it's ripped into this new all-time highs, it's into these past its previous regression. We're in blue sky discovery mode for Ethereum too. Bitcoin is going to be on its way to doing that, where it goes into this kind of final push. Ethereum may have been here already and may actually be ahead of Bitcoin to some degree, but that's a different story. Just because of the way we broke out of the first trade, if you go back and watch my previous videos back between May, June, July, I made more conjecture that Ethereum was kind of front running the market to some degree, that even though there were huge interest moving into Bitcoin, Ethereum's moves were subsequently hitting highs like a few days to a few weeks before sometimes. So I think Bitcoin is just around the corner from doing that. Test, bam, up to 69,000, accumulate between 66, 70, 80, and then bam, 120, 150, and then the bull market's probably done somewhere between September and October. Anyways, that's kind of the conjecture. I want to go over SRM. Looks beautiful right now. We are seeing that little bit of downstream side effects. So SRM has been one of our favorite plays the last week or two, kind of practicing some new ideals. Took most of my entries here around $7, $6.50. Have enjoyed a fair amount of upside on this small cap token of around 100% so far. Feel great. It looks like we had a nice backup, SOS backup, and then what looks to be more breakout. So I was looking for around $16 to $18, but I'm just going to kind of watch the supply signature decrease here into the finality, and it could take us much higher. Avalanche has been using these. I've been trying to use more of these supply lines to follow some of the trends too. So they're not horizontal trading ranges, but they're the fall of the supply. It's just very interesting to see how they interact, and it's likely that we get a fall of supply for Avalanche that retests this $32 area. But after that, we've really built a lot of support in this $35 area for Avalanche. And again, remember that these market cycles here, this 80 days is designed to bore you, right? So the thing that I do is I accumulate day over day over day over day during these periods so that I never have too much risk on the table and I don't get bored. Anyway, so this is just a long period of extra accumulation. I wanted more Avalanche before I think it's going to much higher areas. FTX, freaking brilliant. Gotta love these guys. ArcaneBear.com/FTX, best platform for trading out there. Everything they touch has been fantastic so far. The FTT token looks like it may actually even continue. We do know that this company is A, generating fucking revenues. That's important. They're doing B, stock buybacks are the modern day equivalent, and C, Sam Bankman-Fried, Alameda Research, and all of his friends and family, etc., are well connected. So we call that a deep moat. It has all these signals of a great investment. I am long FTX. Anyways, next, we're going to jump into 1inch here. 1inch just dropped a new wallet. And we see a lot of price action with these guys. One of the things I look for in general, working product model, and then consistent supply signature and architecture, right? So often we can confuse ourselves and like, oh, well, this is just a great trading range. I'm going to follow that. You need to be following the supply signatures here. We saw a nice upthrust, massive amount of volume came in. Not a whole lot of supply on this spring. I was a little worried that we were going to see a big spring here because of the way this upthrust happened, but we didn't get it. That's nice. It actually looks powerful. We're seeing higher lows each time still consistently as well. We're holding above the POC quite consistently on a horizontal trading range. So we could actually finally see the SOS for 1inch jump out here in any short order. I'll leave it at that, kind of a short. I'll keep it short. Otherwise, I'm sure I could rant for freaking ever. This is Tio with the Arcane Bear. Thank you guys all for joining us today. Remember to follow us on these social media accounts down below. I love ranting. Yeah, so thank you guys for joining along with my rants. See you guys in the next episode. Oh yeah, by the way, if you didn't notice, Lindley, one of our Bear family members, is helping out with how-to videos. We're going to try scaling up a little bit so that we can provide you guys more valuable content on how to play around and experiment and participate in this ecosystem. I don't have the time for it, but hopefully as we continue to grow here, we'll be able to help more content be created through other people who are going through the process. So shout out to Lindley for how to use the Avalanche video. I know he's going to be doing a video on Pancake Swap, Binance Chain, how to get into IDOs and IEOs, just to be able to participate more. Again, I really like the aspects of these. I do not have the time to create that content. So everyone remember to give your thoughts and love on the videos that Lindley is going to be making as well. We'll try it out. Let us know what you think if you like those two. Anyways, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Be patient. Think about the next 5-10 year plan. And boom.